It's fun time.
Welcome to our second annual Asian American and Pacific Islander American, or AAPIA, outreach celebration to acknowledge and commemorate this year's Asian American and Pacific Islander American Heritage Month. Once again, we are still in the pandemic, and so we are delivering this program through our social media. Before we continue, I'd like to acknowledge that since last year in March, when the pandemic began, many AAPIA communities have experienced increased levels of violence and discrimination. As documented by Stop AAPI Hate, there have been nearly 4,000 incidents of hate reported, which may or may not include the extraordinary cases, such as the case in March of 2020, when an Asian family was targeted for violence at a Sam's Club in Midland, Texas. Since March of last year, there have been many incidents of violence, but in the past several months, numerous APIAs have lost their lives. We acknowledge here the names of individuals who are believed to have been victims of anti-API hate since just January of this year. Vicha Ratanapakdi, Pak Ho, and Juanito Falcon. And of course, the recent slayings in Atlanta, 6 of whom were women of Asian descent: Soon Chung Park, Hyung Jung Grant, Sung Ja Kim, Young A Yu, Delaney Ashley Young, Paul Andre Mitchells, Xiao Ji Tan, Gao Yu Fang. These are, of course, just names of individuals who have been confirmed by national media as having passed. More have yet to be confirmed by national media or have been maimed, scarred mentally, emotionally, and physically for life. We need to remember their names as to not further erase APIAs from history. Today, some of us at Nevada State and in the broader community share our thoughts about the APIA identity and history. We then, of course, close our event with celebrating APIA excellence by recognizing students who have achieved or are maintaining at least a 3.0 GPA. Despite the challenges that we've faced and continue to face during the pandemic, we know that we will overcome this moment in history, and we know we don't ride alone. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, everyone. This is Zara Burines. I am an AAPI and an assistant professor of School of Nursing here at Nevada State College. I am so happy that we will have our AAPI month celebration for our history next month, because this is the only way that we could express ourselves among others. We could express who we are, and we could also feel, share our moments with the rest of the people here in our community. And we all know that at this point, there's a lot of, Asian hate, that is rising at this point. There's only one wish that I would say, that I hope one of these days it would stop, because we could work together. Remember, we are only one as a community. As we all know, maybe we look different, but actually we are all the same. We came into this world with nothing, and we will exit in this world with nothing. So I hope this Asian hate would be done, and we hope that we could work together as a community. Thank you so much, and have a good day.
Hi, my name is Amy Matamora Mcafee. I'm a proud Japanese American of mixed heritage. My father is Japanese American and my mother is European American. I'm a student at Nevada State and a member of the Asian American Pacific Islander American AAPIA subcommittee on campus. Growing up, I saw myself as white, but now I realize that I was viewed as an other, as an outsider. And the question, what are you, has pervaded my life. People often called me exotic, which I now realize is actually code for foreign. In school, kids made comments about my good grades and told me I did well only because I was Japanese. I felt like I was minimized, my efforts erased, and I was condensed into some kind of magical Asian attribute, like just being Japanese predicted my academic success. I remember being upset with my classmates, but not knowing what to say. I was silenced in my outrage. My auntie and Uncle Fukuda were incarcerated at Manzanar. Everything they owned was taken from them just because they were Japanese American, no other reason. This action was taken by Executive Order 9066 of President Franklin Roosevelt following the bombing of Pearl Harbor. My family and 120,000 other Japanese Americans were rounded up, all their belongings were stolen, and they were transported to camps in isolated and desolate places. But they did not complain, they just worked harder. In fact, my auntie and uncle almost never spoke about that time in their history. It seems like they too were silenced. At this time in our history, as violence against AAPIA surges throughout the United States, I hope that we will stand in solidarity together, that we will rise up and refuse to be silenced. We will speak for those who cannot speak for themselves. We will be heard. Stop Asian hate. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lovely, and to me, AAPI History Month is a time where we are able to recognize and appreciate the diverse cultures, traditions, and contributions that Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have done in the past and currently. It is also a time where we come together as a community and share our feelings and be there for one another, especially in recent hard times that we've been going through.
Hello and half a day. My name is Margie. I am a senior academic advisor for pre-nursing and STEM majors. I am also an alumni of NSC. For me, the Asian American Pacific Islander AAPI History Month gives us an opportunity to celebrate the richness of cultures it brings to the world. It is also an opportunity to celebrate the cultures that are oftentimes overlooked and forgotten. Under the AAPI umbrella, I truly identify as Guamanian. I was born and raised on Guam for most of my life until moving to Las Vegas. My Guamanian identity is not only part of my ethnicity, but is also part of who I am as a person. The morals, beliefs, and values of my Guamanian culture are reflected in my professional and personal interactions with others by treating them with respect and dignity. Equally important is the value of family. Myself and my Guamanian people always support our family members, related by blood or not, during joyful and sorrowful times. Moving to Las Vegas, I continue to take pride in my Guamanian heritage and sharing it with others. Please take the time to celebrate AAPI History Month in whatever form you're able. Thank you, Sizuis Masi.
Hi, my name is Paul Lee Vu, Director for the Office of Community Engagement and Diversity Initiatives. What does the Asian American identity mean to me? It means that I am not alone in my experience. To be clear, I am Hmong American, but throughout my life I have been called racial slurs. I want to emphasize now that the words I'm about to use are being mentioned here for the sake of clarity, so that there is no confusion over the G word, C word, or J word. They should not be used in everyday speech, as they are highly offensive. I've been called gook, which stems from the word miguklan. American soldiers started using it during the Korean War as a racial slur against Koreans. I am not Korean. I've been called chink, even though I'm not Chinese. I've been called Jap, even though I'm not Japanese. All of these racial slurs have served one key purpose: to dehumanize me as the other, as somebody who doesn't belong in the US, as a forever foreigner. The Asian American and Pacific Islander American identity then recognizes that our collective racialized experience is real. In the same vein, the AAPI History Month then has a similar meaning to me. It is the one time out of the year that I am not invisible, when the history of people who look like me, or rather that I get grouped with, when our history, which is American history, is told. It is the one time out of the year in which there is an opportunity to tell the long history of violence and discrimination against people like me, because during the rest of the year, I am told that I am part of the model minority who doesn't experience racism, which of course is a myth.
I'll never forget when I learned what a Jap was. I was born and raised in Hawaii. We lived in a neighborhood where we had multiple families of different nationalities. My friends were over, we were playing war games. And basically, the toys saying, "Kill the Japs. They were the enemies." My mom heard and said, "Don't say that." I said, "Why?" She said, "We are the Japs, and it's derogatory, so don't use the term." I was stunned. You see, I knew that my father fought in the war. And when he was in Italy with the 442nd, my grandfather was taken away from Hawaii and put in a concentration camp. My grandmother, house arrest. They lost their property. The thing that happened is that at the end of the war, there was a sense of pride. I remember the parties of the 442nd. They were really proud to be Americans and Japanese American. That is how I was raised. And I'm also proud to be American.
Hi, my name is Vida Lin. I'm the president and founder of the Asian Community Development Council, ACDC. The Nevada State College, we thank you for having this Asian History Month to celebrate our community, especially this time where there's so much people that's afraid and scared. This is the time where we need to uplift and say, let's work together. We have been so silent for so long that without us talking about the history, we don't want things to be repeated again. We want to move forward and be part of this America, the story of America, and how we help build America. This is the message I wanted to tell everyone, that the Asian is growing. We are part of this country. When we help people, no matter how small it could be, what we are telling them is that we give you hope. America is built of opportunities and dreams. And that's why my family came. Because the United States of America is dreams of opportunity. And everybody can get to it. You just have the passion and the vision, and don't give up. It took me 20 years to start ACDC, but I never gave up. But I met so many great and wonderful people. And when I started ACDC, it was from the community who said, I support you. We support you, and we want you to be here, and we want a place where people can go and get help. And when they come to me and say, thank you, thank you for having ACDC. This money that we get, or food assistance that we get, or when getting our kids ready, not only Asian, but all kids ready to get ready to go to college, and what resources out there, that is what makes me wake up every day and say, this is what I want to do and help the community. And I applaud Nevada State College for doing this. So thank you, Nevada State College. Thank you for thinking of us.
Hi, my name is Constancio Arnaldo, and I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Interdisciplinary Gender and Ethnic Studies. I teach courses in Asian American Studies, Gender and Sexuality Studies, as well as Interdisciplinary Studies. And I'd first like to offer my condolences to the victims and their families of the senseless and tragic shootings in Atlanta, Georgia by a white male gunman. 6 out of the 8 people that were killed were Asian American women. Now, although the killer told police that he had a sexual addiction that he had to eliminate, we must not forget that history tells us how his ideologies and subsequent murders that targeted Asian-owned spas and Asian American women are tied to a much longer history. Now, I'll provide some contemporary context and some data provided by the StopAAPIHate.org organization. So I'm pulling this data from their website. So over the past year, since about March 2020, when COVID-19 really took hold, AAPI organizations have tracked close to 4,000 hate crimes and incidences targeting Asian Americans. Now, many of these victims were women, So about 70% reported these incidences, whereas 30% were reported by Asian American men. And in major US cities, hate crimes against Asian Americans have increased 150%. But I want to focus on this in terms of it being gendered and racialized, as well as class-based violence, and this has its roots in the late 1800s. So one of the federal legislative policies that targeted Asian immigrants, especially Chinese immigrant women, was the Page Act of 1875. And so the Page Act scrutinized Chinese women because immigration authorities suspected that they were prostitutes. And so the implication here is that these women would bring immorality, sexual contamination, and disease. Additionally, authorities felt that they would threaten the purity of the white family and therefore destroy the fabric of the US nation. So we see here how even if Chinese women did not come as prostitutes, their perceived labor, whether real or imagined, as sex workers was already devalued. So in this sense, we need to be mindful that Asian American women are racialized and sexualized, and the misogyny that the killer acted upon must be placed in this larger context. And so for centuries, Asian women have had to endure tropes of exoticness, sexual excess. We can think about the film The Geisha Girl, where the character was sexually submissive, promiscuous, docile, and immoral, and who carried sexual contagions. Now, I mentioned this in terms of popular culture, but even social media users, especially Asian American women, have reported that they've been targeted because they are Asian American women and that they must be sexually available to all men, especially white men. So Asian American women are seen as either hypersexualized, that is, excessively sexual, or that they are docile and subservient. And because this creates this binary, there's actually no room to think about the middle, the gray area, that it's much more complicated than these static and fixed stereotypes. And so I want to return to what the gunman said, that he had to eliminate this temptation. What this also does is that it silences the victims. It silences the humanity, the voices, and the agency of these Asian American women who were killed on March 16th.
Did you know that the only atomic bombs ever used were dropped on Asian people? Hundreds of thousands of innocent Japanese women and children were slaughtered. Civilians living in the fishing villages of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The patterns of violence that we are seeing today with Asian American Pacific Islander Americans being attacked and murdered is part of a system of strategic racism that has been employed against us since the first Chinese immigrants arrived in the 1850s to build the Transcontinental Railroad. I am Japanese American. My family, along with 117,000 other Japanese Americans, were robbed of all their property and their possessions and forced into concentration camps following the bombing of Pearl Harbor. My own Asian heritage has motivated my communication studies, examining the ways that language and image are used in the media to influence how AAPIAs are perceived and treated in American society. One of my main areas of focus is the ways that AAPIA women are depicted in movies and TV and how stereotypical representations serve to dehumanize and objectify AAPIA women, leading to the violence that we are currently seeing, particularly the Atlanta shooting on March 16th of 2021. I've determined that there are three categories of media depictions of AAPIA women: the Geisha Girl, the Dragon Lady, and the martial artist. First, the Geisha Girl. Geishas have been equated with sex workers in our Western culture, but geishas are actually entertainers, skilled dancers, singers, and conversationalists. However, in Western media imagery, geisha girls are seen as promiscuous while also being silent, deferent, and obedient. This representation encourages perceptions of AAPIA women as always willing sexual objects to be used for male desire, tied to the exotification and fetishization of AAPIA women called yellow fever. The second characterization is the Dragon Lady. The Dragon Lady dates back to 1935, during the Yellow Peril era when the American media wanted to instill fear of the Asian other. The Dragon Lady is the incarnation of the Yellow Peril into a deviant, sexualized female version. She's ruthless, treacherous, and untrustworthy. She'll use her sexuality to gain power and further her goals. This depiction characterizes intelligent, strong, and authoritative AAPIA women as terrifying. They become animals, unreal creatures, which is literal dehumanization. The third is the martial artist. Though this portrayal may seem empowering, that's deceptive. The martial artist can take care of herself. She is resourceful, independent, and capable. However, in the media, she must have a strong man in her life, a man who's able to best her, placing even the most confident women as second-class status to men. We've talked about representations of AAPI women as the Geisha Girl, the Dragon Lady, and the martial artist, all of which reinforce that Asian American women are less than human, often literal animals, and in positions below men. These portrayals are the result of othering, and we must stop thinking of AAPIA women and all AAPIA people as foreign objects. Let us challenge these portrayals of Asian women and all Asian people. Let us demand more accurate representations of AAPI women and men as fully fledged and three-dimensional humans. We must recognize when we are being dehumanized and objectified in movies and TV. We must stand up and speak out. Enough is enough. Stop Asian hate. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy, for that analysis. I now continue with a similar analysis of popular culture. Although the film Crazy Rich Asians was released in 2018, I'm going to talk about it today because I believe it's especially relevant at this time. I share with you all today a hidden gem that perhaps only a small percentage of people who watch the film will know about. I'm referring to how Coldplay's song Yellow was placed at the end of the film. When John Chu, the director of the film, originally asked permission to use their song in the film, Coldplay declined. They changed their minds only after they read his letter. I now read his letter, as it is critical to understanding my analysis. This is what director John Chu writes to Coldplay. Dear Chris, Guy, Johnny, and Will, I know it's a bit strange, but my whole life, I've had a complicated relationship with the color yellow. From being called the word in a derogatory way throughout grade school, to watching movies where they called cowardly people yellow. It's always had a negative connotation in my life. That is, until I heard your song. For the first time in my life, it described the color in the most beautiful, magical ways I have ever heard. The color of the stars, her skin, the love. It was an incredible image of attraction and aspiration that made me rethink my own self-image. I remember seeing the music video in college for the first time on TRL. The one shot with the sun rising was breathtaking for both my filmmaker and music-loving side. It immediately became an anthem for me and my friends, and gave us a new sense of pride we never felt before, even though it probably wasn't ever your intention. We could reclaim the color for ourselves, and it has stuck with me for the majority of my life. So the reason I am writing this now is because I'm directing a film for Warner Brothers called Crazy Rich Asians, based on the best-selling novel, and it is the first all-Asian cast for a Hollywood studio film in 25 years. Crazy. We were recently featured on the cover of Entertainment Weekly to commemorate this fact. The story is a romantic comedy about a young Asian American woman, played by Constance Wu, from New York, coming to terms with her cultural identity while she's visiting her boyfriend's mother, played by Michelle Yeoh, in Singapore. It's a lavish, fun, romantic romp, but underneath it all, there's an intimate story of a girl becoming a woman, learning that she's good enough and deserves the world no matter what she's been taught and how she's been treated, and ultimately, that she can be proud of her mixed heritage. The last scene of the movie shows this realization as she heads to the airport to return home a different woman. It's an empowering, emotional march and needs an anthem that lives up and beyond her inner triumph, which is where yellow comes in. It would be such an honor to use your song that gave me such strength throughout the years to underscore this final part of our film. And for me personally, it would complete a journey that I've been going through, fighting to make it in the movie business. I know as an artist, it's always difficult to decide when it's okay to attach your art to someone else's. And I'm sure in most instances, you are inclined to say no. However, I do believe this project is special. I do believe this is a unique situation in which the first Hollywood studio film with an all-Asian cast is not playing stereotypes or side players, but romantic and comedic leads. It will give a whole generation of Asian Americans and others the same sense of pride I got when I heard your song. I know it's recontextualized, but I think it's what makes it powerful. I want all of them to have an anthem that makes them feel as beautiful as your words and melody made me feel when I needed it most. Your consideration would mean so much to me and our project. I can show you the movie if you want to see the context, or talk to you if you have any questions. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Much love, John M. Chu. Now let's consider the placement of the song, that is, changed to Chinese at the end of the film. I believe John Chu did this intentionally. It's a beautiful rendition of the song by Catherine Ho, but the Chinese lyrics are also changed from the original English. As with code switching and use of slang in hip-hop, this message was only for insiders and perhaps not necessarily for your average white consumer. Let's first look into the original English lyrics now that we know what he wrote Coldplay. Look at the stars, look how they shine for you. I read here the movie stars in the film Crazy Rich Asians. And everything you do, yeah, they were all yellow. I read here two interpretations. Everything you do as an Asian person, you are lumped in with everyone else as Asian. You are racialized as Asian. Another read is that everything in the film was Asian. I think the two interpretations together make this a clever use of the song at the end. I came along, I wrote a song for you, and all the things you do, and it was called Yellow. So then I took my turn, what a thing to have done, and it was all yellow. I read here that this is his ode to his people, fellow AAPIAs who feel his pain, that he wrote this song, made this film specifically for you, that he called it Yellow, that is, Crazy Rich Asians, redefining what it means to be Asian. Society keeps defining what it means to be Asian throughout our lives as perpetual foreigners, as geeky, unattractive men, as dragon ladies, China dolls, or geisha girls, stereotypes. But through imagery showing off AAPIA men as attractive, the placement of abs, all that stuff is intentional. The storytelling journey that is told for both Rachel Chu, the female lead played by Constance Wu, and her mother-in-law's character, as well as Astrid Young Tail's character. He flips those scripts, humanizing the possibilities for Asian femininities and masculinities. Your skin, oh yeah, your skin and bones, turn into something beautiful. Do you know? You know I love you so. You know I love you so. Again, this is an ode to AAPIAs. It's an acknowledgement that he's flipping the script with what it means to be yellow, that is Asian, in this film. I swam across, I jumped across for you. What a thing to do, because you were all yellow. I drew a line for you. What a thing to do, and it was all yellow. And your skin, oh yeah, your skin and bones, turn into something beautiful, do you know? Or, for you I'd bleed myself dry, for you I'd bleed myself dry. It's true, look how they shine for you, look how they shine for you. Look how they shine look how they shine for you. And of course, look at the stars, look how they shine for you and all the things that you do. Indeed, This was a watershed moment in the API representation in Hollywood. To sell this idea that an all-Asian cast could tell a story that could be relatable to all Americans was a great risk. It had to be relatable to all Americans if it was to be successful at the box office. When he put the song in the movie, he had no idea whether the film was going to be successful. If the movie flopped, it would have hurt his career taking such a risk. But that's what it means to be a trailblazer. I read here that he drew a line for you as acknowledging this, and that he made his best attempt to set a bar for AAPIA incorporation in film. Now here are the lyrics to Catherine Ho's version in Crazy Rich Asian. There are interesting analyses that you can also consider, but I'll leave that to you. I'll highlight here just a few lines, making me happy for a long while. It's worth waiting for. My heart rushes from dusk to early morning, unable to bear it anymore. My feelings and hopes land in your hands. I want to know how long a meteor can fly for, its beauty. Is it true? So if you watch or rewatch Crazy Rich Asians at some point in the future, try and look for some of the potential hidden messages, because there are other hidden messages within the film as well. The film is as much a piece of anti-racist work as it is a rom-com. While the film definitely does have its limitations, it does try to undo the harmful racial stereotypes that have plagued Hollywood about Asian Americans. In closing, we now highlight some of our AAPIA students who have earned or are maintaining a 3.0 GPA. Congratulations, Scorpions. It is our pleasure to recognize your achievement.
Chúa thao lô hê kỳ